please join me in congratulating this year's Youth Award winner, Abby, for her remarkable achievements. Felicitations, Abby.
Wow, thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor to be here. As our presenters said, there are so many youth right now and my colleagues who are doing great work in the science policy sphere, and so I'm truly honored to be here. Thank you so much to the Canadian Science Policy Centre for selecting me for this year's Youth Science Policy Award. Before I begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the lands upon which my work was carried out. The proposal I'm presenting to you today was developed while I was working in the unceded and industrial territory of the Mi'kmaq people in Nova Scotia. I offer my deepest respect and gratitude to the Mi'kmaq Nation for their stewardship of this land for thousands of years. This land is covered by the peace and treaty friendships, and actually the work I was doing in the Halifax Harbor, oral Mi'kmaq tradition says is where the Great Spirit Fire sat, who gave birth to the 7 original Mi'kmaq families. I am also deeply grateful to be here today to be a guest on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people, whose land we are gathered on. Now, before I get into my proposal, I must give thanks to for everybody who has helped me with this work, including the Halifax Port Authority, where I had the privilege of interning this summer. My time there provided valuable insights into the complexities of managing port operations and sustainability, which helped shape the ideas behind this proposal. A special thanks to Blair Crawford, Megan Coleman, and Sherry Scully for their support during this time. I would also like to thank my academic supervisor, Dr. Hannah Harrison, who was one of our past youth winners, for encouraging me to submit my proposal and for her ongoing guidance. Lastly, I must thank my friends and family for always lifting me up and supporting my dreams. It is truly such an honor to be here around so many inspiring and accomplished people. So again, thank you. Now, for my proposal titled Harboring Life, Managing Port Impacts on Coastal Ecosystems. As many of you may know, ports play a vital role in Canada's economy, serving as gateways for trade and connecting us to the global market. Port activities such as shipping and cargo handling can lead to pollution, habitat degradation, ecosystem troubles, and more, posing significant threats to our coastal ecosystems and aquatic species. However, despite these risks, there's a concerning lack of consistent monitoring and established guidelines to assess the environmental impacts of ports nationwide. Although Canadian port authorities are obligated to adhere to federal environmental regulations, such as the Canadian Marine Act, the Port Authorities Operations Regulation, and the Canadian Environmental Assessment Act, these regulations do not require Canadian port authorities to regularly conduct environmental monitoring to monitor their possible port impacts on ecosystems and the environment. This deficiency in oversight leaves us vulnerable to ecosystem degradation without sufficient accountability. Consequently, environmental monitoring efforts remain voluntary and discretionary, often resulting in inadequate data collection and assessment of port impacts on the environment. A study conducted by the Canadian government in 2021 demonstrated that there is a lack of coordination and consistency in environmental monitoring in ports. This study found monitoring efforts typically lack a common parameter and a common framework. Due to this lack of monitoring, the current state of our environmental management in industrial port zones tends to be quite reactive rather than proactive. So to address this issue, after doing a lot of research, I proposed a nationwide policy that would mandate Canadian port authorities to consistently monitor their environmental impacts rigorously. This policy would include specific guidelines and regulations for environmental monitoring, ensuring that we have standardized methods across all ports in Canada. Collaboration with government officials, rights holders, relevant stakeholders, and experts in port impacts, ecological monitoring, and oceanography would be imperative in such a creation of a policy. Furthermore, port authorities would be mandated to utilize this monitoring results to inform sustainable port management practices, ensuring that these environmental considerations are integrated into everyday port operations. This proactive approach not only protects our environment, but also ensures that ports continue to thrive as vital economic hubs for generations to come. To conclude, the core message is quite simple. We cannot manage what we do not know. Without consistent, standardized environmental monitoring, port authorities lack the critical data they need to effectively manage our environmental impacts and make informed decisions. From my experience working with the Halifax Port Authority, I've seen firsthand how overwhelming the volume of information on sustainability can be for organizations. By implementing a mandatory monitoring policy, we can equip port authorities with the tools and the knowledge that they need to protect both our coastal ecosystems and the vital role that ports play in our economy. And I would like to add, not just for tomorrow, not just for my generation, not just for the next generation, but as Indigenous knowledge says, for the next 7 generations to come. Thank you.